Welcome to Whatever You Need. If this is your first time here, please press subscribe, leave a like, and click join to support the channel. Your engagement keeps us bringing the stories that stir the heart and unsettle the comfortable. Now, let us turn the lights back on and listen closely to what happened when glamour gave way to a human upheaval beneath the Riviera stars. On a night when the Croyette shimmered like a long, liquid runway of light and lenses, one image lodged itself into the memory of every camera that pointed toward the festival. Two figures who have long occupied the Turkish public's imagination, appearing together under the famous candelabra. She advanced down the carpet in a gown whose dark fabric swallowed and then returned the light in 1,000 tiny sparks. He moved with the studied composure of a seasoned leading man, tuxedo tailored, posture deliberate. Together they produced a vision that might have been composed by a director bent on breathtaking tableaus, except that this tableau was not staged. It was real in a way that made the surrounding pageantry tone-deaf and brittle. As the evening unfolded, what began as a portrayal of glamorous solidarity between peers evolved into something of a different species, a human moment so exposed that the usual protections, PR strategies, rehearsed smiles, controlled statements, fell away. At an exclusive after-party, amid a constellation of regional luminaries and international attendees, Barış Arduç approached hand Ursel. The exchange began as a private murmur, the kind that is normally swallowed by velvet conversation in corners. But privacy does not always keep its promise, and soon enough the murmur hardened into a bold utterance that split the room open. Words travel. They alter atmospheres and rearrange people's futures. The phrase that came from him, simple in composition but enormous in consequence, was not confined to the language it was spoken in. It landed in the room as an elemental truth, a force that did not need translation. Those present felt the gravity of it. She who had only hours before embodied poise and control, allowed the facade to crack. A hand to the mouth, a breath that quivered, an exit that resembled a withdrawal into a smaller world. Cameras followed the arc of her movement, capturing the collapse of a moment the world had wanted to love. The internet did the rest, as it always does, amplifying and dissecting until the private became communal property. The aftermath was as swift as it was unavoidable. A hashtag emerged, spreading urgency and compassion in equal measure. Fans rallied, friends counseled, commentators conjectured, 1,000 guessworks swarmed every available outlet. In the days that followed, the two principals of the evening retreated from public stages and red carpeted aisles into the relative shelter of silence. Yet silence is rarely the end, often it is an accelerant for rumors, an invitation to narrative constructors to fill the vacuum with speculation. When Barış finally spoke to the press, he did so with a voice that sought neither triumph nor blame, but instead asked for understanding of a frailty that often accompanies fame. He described a long containment of feeling, a history of silence now ruptured. The international outlets seized upon his admission, translating intimacy into headlines and converting emotion into copy that would sell across borders. Some wrote it as an act of courage, others as a misjudgment that would have consequences for all involved. The response from within Hand's orbit was restrained, a guarded tenderness that favored discretion over spectacle. An ex-partner, Kerem Bürsin, offered public remarks that landed like a cooled coal, measured, not unkind, yet impossible to disentangle from the complex lattice of public sentiment. His words were received variously as a courteous distance, a subtle rebuke, or an inevitable caution that the private should remain private. Online, readers parsed that statement as if each syllable were a clue to a larger, unseen plot. What fascinates the public is not simply the confession. Many private lives contain declarations that never surface, but the stage on which it was delivered and the immediate consequences that followed. Cannes, associated in the popular imagination with curated perfection and cinematic invention, became an unintentional amphitheater for raw human disclosure. The paradox of a place built to celebrate storytelling becoming the setting for an off-script narrative has kept the story alive in ways that scripted dramas rarely achieve. There is a moral lesson embedded within the spectacle, that truth, however delayed, does not remain quiet forever. In the absence of frequent public statements, gestures and silences have been read as communication in their own right. An Instagram post by Barış, monochrome, pensive, captioned with a line that suggested the impossibility of both speaking and receiving in the same breath, became a canvas for thousands of interpretations. Han's muted replies and her physical retreat to quieter surroundings were understood by many as an essential step for self-preservation. Their respective choices of solitude, far from signifying surrender, can be interpreted as a deliberate recalibration of personal priorities in the face of an event that turned intimacy into spectacle. There are practical consequences to moments like these as well. Industry figures watch how public perception shifts, and whether sponsors, producers, or future collaborators choose distance or solidarity in response. For two of the country's most bankable names, media narratives can influence casting, endorsements, and the tenor of careers already built upon public affection. Yet even within a profession dependent upon image, there exists a persistent recognition that authenticity, however inconvenient, exerts its own gravitational pull. Producers, agents, and colleagues find themselves recalibrating not merely strategies, but also the humane responses required when real emotions are laid bare. Now we want you to weigh in. Do you view Barış's declaration as an overdue reclaiming of truth, or as a performance that exploited an international stage to settle a private debt? Would a different setting, away from press and parades, have led to another outcome? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read them all and discuss your perspectives in future videos. Tell us which Turkish celebrities you would like us to cover next. Your suggestions shape the stories we chase. Before we close, a reminder from your team: whatever you need. If this video moved you, please like, subscribe, and join to support our work. Clicking the join button helps us produce longer features, secure exclusive interviews, and maintain the quality of the narratives you love. If you want more immediate engagement, drop a comment, whether it's a theory, a critique, or simply an expression of empathy for those caught beneath the public glare. Your voice enriches the conversation. As with all stories that expand beyond the individuals involved into the collective consciousness, this one leaves open more questions than it answers. It asks us to consider the ethics of confession, the limits of performance, and the tender, often brutal, ways in which private pain becomes public currency. For a few hours in Cannes, an unplanned truth laid itself bare beneath the very lights designed to flatter. Whether that truth becomes the seed of reconnection, or the end of a chapter, is a matter that time, and the choices of those at the center, will determine. Thank you for joining us at Whatever You Need. Your presence here matters. Every comment, like, and membership helps us continue to tell stories that probe the human condition beyond mere headlines. If you want deeper analysis, more background on international press reactions, or a constructed timeline of events for our next installment, let us know, and we will bring it. Until the next story, take care, look after one another, and remember that behind every spotlight is a person with a life that is larger than a single moment.